And then those priests then went like a contagion into the parishes and educated those parishioners. And then they did what they traditionally do, the ecumenists, is they appealed to the conservatives. I remember when John Paul the 23rd, especially speaking of Roman Catholic experience, because my parents were converts to the Roman Catholic faith during the 50s, and they were witness to the changes that happened in the Roman Catholic Church as a result of Vatican II. And Vatican II was first called by John Paul the 23rd to be
or Pope John the 23rd.
Pope John the 23rd, I should say. Pope John the 23rd, to be a restoration of the traditions of the Catholic Church. They appealed first to the conservatives within the Church, and they adopted, as I said, language which appeals. They spoke of unity and of tradition.
So, in other
when in
words,
fact they had the opposite agenda, and as I said in the first program, ecumenists will often use language which has very positive import. They'll speak of unity and acceptance and tolerance and brotherhood. But when in fact what they mean beneath the surface is disunity and acceptance of divergence.
And acceptance of ideas which are essentially contrary to what they've been teaching for.
And they did the same thing. They did the same thing as you were saying with the so-called Orthodox seminaries, where they basically remove the person from the entire way of life and the lifestyle of the whole church, which requires fasting and prayer and attending services and all these other very important things which educate the soul. And they begin to just work on training the mind and intellectualizing everything and making everything abstract. And it becomes then very easy to inculcate people with basically mistaken ideas which they don't see are in basic conflict with the whole overall view of the church. And the result is then you get a whole group of Orthodox priests and prelates who are only nominally Orthodox and in fact are starting to preach ideas which came from the West and are basically secularizing and humanistic principles. And then so the result is you get the old calendar and the new calendar churches, which basically are using the calendar as a kind of litmus test and a kind of shorthand way of indicating a whole host of other implied differences, which are very fundamental to what is the difference between a genuine Christian life and a very westernized, intellectualized sort of pseudo-Christian, pseudo-orthodoxy.
I would argue that you can't study Orthodox theology separate from the life of the church. You can't go and pick a book up and learn Orthodox theology. The Orthodox theology was always learned within the context of the full life of the family, the full life of the community. And by the creation of these seminaries, by the separation of the life of the church from this intellectual understanding of theology, that they've moved back to that logical argument which began, as I said in the first program, with this notion that you're going to apply human logic to the scriptures, to the tradition, and once you apply human logic, then you're going to arrive at certain truths. But the problem with this is that once you've applied human logic, you end up not with a unified truth, you end up with thousands and thousands and millions of individual truths.
Because you're trying to bring God down to man rather than raise man up to God, which is, I think, the essential purpose, is that unity with God that we all strive for.
You're changing the church, you're not changing man. You're changing the representative of God on earth, the representative of the Holy Spirit and the fruit of the Holy Spirit and then the garden of the Holy Spirit and the family of the Holy Spirit into, instead you're trying to change it. And in accordance with man's ideas and man's principles.
And I know it's a difficult task to live an Orthodox life in this world. The world is not conducive to an Orthodox life, especially the post-Enlightenment, humanistic, secularized world. It's not sympathetic to an Orthodox life. And if you are an Orthodox person living in this country, in this, as I said, secularized, humanized life, it's a very difficult life to live. It's very difficult to fast when the world around you is not fasting. It's very difficult. When they destroyed the Orthodox community, and then they created this, basically, when they made the Orthodox Church just a social institution, a place where you go to congregate with certain like-minded or ethnically minded people. And they removed it from the life, that active life of, as the saints say, the acquisition of the Holy Spirit, when it simply becomes a place where you go to
socialize, yeah.
Sort of a social culture club, really.
Yeah.
Then
it's not a transformation club, it's just a mutual admiration society.
Then, in order to have people comfortable in that environment, you have to abolish these things. You have to remove them from the genuine spiritual life of the church, the genuine community life of the church. And you become a dysfunctional family, which, as we know, that America, unfortunately, has become the land of the dysfunctional family. It's become the land of the divorce, of the secularized and the divided family.
So what would either and both of you recommend to the Orthodox Christian on the street? I mean, why should he concern himself with this stuff, or how should he deal with it? Because I hear sometimes, well, I just let these matters take care of themselves because the clergy know what they're doing, and if there's something that they need to impart to us that's important, they will.
Well, again, this is a concept of the difference between the clergy and the laity, where the laity are just a flock of docile sheep who are going to do what they're told and not contribute anything. This is the traditional Roman Catholic concept, which even they have gotten away from lately, and it just doesn't represent a really Christian ideal, which is that we are to become images and come into the likeness of Christ Himself and of the apostles. These were very, what shall I say, energetic, forceful individual personalities, each with their own characteristics, and the concept that somehow the clergy are some sort of a superior class in some sort of absolute way is really a Roman Catholic kind of conception of a kind of clergy worship, which in fact goes way back to the pagan roots of the Roman Church in the Roman aristocracy, which this then was passed on over the centuries as the Roman Empire fell and the Roman Church began to take its place as a social organization. And this is very foreign to an Orthodox concept. And I'll give you an example which is rather striking, and that is John Paul himself. There is something very unique about him if you contrast him with all the other popes that have ever been. And what is that? And that is that he comes from Poland. That is a Slavic country. It is a country which has a 10 or 15% Orthodox minority. It's the only Roman Catholic country that has such a large minority. And I was struck instantly when he acceded to the papacy at how much he reminded me of the kind of humble, contrite, warm quality that you find in an Orthodox priest. And I think he learned a lot from Orthodoxy. Of course, he'll never admit it, and he'll claim it's all Roman Catholicism. But I think it is something which one notices immediately in approaching an Orthodox priest. There is none of this kind of arrogance or hauteur or elitism that you find either with Protestantism, with the idea that they consider themselves to be saved automatically, or with Roman Catholics. And again, what we see here is the fruit of a kind of appeal to pride. And Orthodoxy, and this is one of the most difficult things to reconcile oneself to in the Orthodox Church, and that is that you're never given that chance to be smug and self-satisfied and consider yourself saved or part of an elite clergy or something else, and comfortable in that sense. You're always called to basically examine yourself and examine how much what your faults are, and to try and improve yourself. And one of the recent elders from one of the monastic centers in Greece